Hi everybody, it's Jason. Today I'm going to take you through the first part of how to do an IFR flight plan for this contrived example that we have on learnifr.com. So in this example, you are stationed at Nashville at Kilo Bravo November Alpha, and you and a buddy are going to be going to the Asheville, North Carolina area to visit the Biltmore Estates. And this is kind of similar to something you might get on your check ride. If you've done your private pilot certificate, probably seen this before, so it's nothing too crazy. But we're going to go through the whole scenario on how to do route selection, altitude selection, performance calculations like normal, and then we'll actually eventually submit a flight plan for it. So this first video is just about how I do personally, route selection for this scenario. So first things first, we're going from Nashville to Asheville. And I don't know what airports are around there, so let's go ahead and find it. We're going to go to the Biltmore Estates. Let's see where that is. Cool. That's pretty. It's very nice. Never visited. Looks like fun. Let's go ahead and see if there's some airports nearby. Near Biltmore. There we go. So we have a couple options. The first one here is the Asheville Regional Airport. It is a 4-hour and 30-minute walk. Thank you, Google, for that wonderful default of walking directions. 16-minute drive. Much more reasonable. It looks like there's another one here. What is this? Cane Creek Airport for November Charlie 6. And then 6 Oaks Airport, November Charlie 6-7. But we'll take a look at the picture. It's a farm. It's probably a private airport. We'll go ahead and double check that. And that's it in the area. There's nothing really north. And there's Greenville Spartanburg, which looks like it's a bit further south. A lot further south. There we go. And it's about an hour and 18-minute drive to get from Greenville Spartanburg to the Biltmore Estates. So that's something to keep in mind. We might be able to use that as an alternate or something later on. But for now, let's just assume we're going to use the Asheville Regional Airport, and it looks like the code there is Alpha Victor Lima. We're going to need that as we go into the more aviator-friendly piece of software, SkyVector. If you don't know SkyVector, it's awesome. It's no ForeFlight, but it's free, kind of like this website, so you can't really complain too much, can you? But it's awesome. So we'll go ahead and put in the Asheville Regional Airport here, and it puts a little, you might see a little cross there. Let's go ahead and zoom in. There it is, right here. This is the Asheville Regional Airport. It looks like it's a Class Charlie, and here's the Asheville city above, which probably has the Biltmore Estate somewhere around there. And let's go ahead and verify our assumptions. Cane Creek is a private airport here. There's another airport southwest. Cool name, Transylvania, but also private, so we'll ignore that. There is one just a bit southeast of the Asheville Regional Airport called Hendersonville. There's some glider activity there, so maybe that's an option. We take a look in the metadata we have down here, and we have a longest runway at Hendersonville, 3,100, in comparison to the Asheville one, which is a regional airport. It's a Charlie, so it's probably going to have a bigger runway, and it does at 8,000 feet. Fantastic. So let's just assume we'll use that, and then Greenville Spartanburg is down here. It looks like another Charlie here with an even longer runway. So that is something we'll go ahead and keep in mind as we do our planning. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug her in. I'm going to go directly from Nashville to Asheville and kind of take a look at what direct looks like. Well, I'm not going to file direct. It gives me some information on the airspace that's in between both points and terrain and everything else under the sun, and then we can fine tune it. And so right now it's pretty much straight east. It's a 105-degree heading here, and it's gonna go over, it looks like, some mountains over here in Smoky Mountains, part of the Appalachians. And for a flight, it's about 200 nautical miles, and it's gonna take you about an hour and a half if you're traveling at about 110 knots up here. Seems pretty good. Flight time's pretty sufficient, but let's go ahead and take a look at the terrain and see what things look like, and see if we can pick out any special use airspaces or anything there that is going to cause us to to have some pause. So around Nashville looks like relatively flat. If we take a look at the quadrangles here, the Nashville airport is hanging out at 2,200 up here, and it cuts into 1,700, still relatively flat, 2,000s, 2,000s, it gets up into 3,400 here, still stays into 3,100, then eventually we get smacked right here by this this ridge of the Smoky Mountains, where it starts peaking up. This quadrangle shows 7,000 feet. And so one of the things that if you're a good IFR student and you've been on this site for a little bit, you might know that there is is incumbent on you when you're doing your flight planning to make sure that you are at least 1,000 feet above any obstacle, or in a mountainous area, 2,000 feet above any mountainous regions within 4 nautical miles horizontally. And with that said, we can go ahead and take a look at this awesome magenta line and see how much of a pain that's going to be for us. So right here, our peaking is about 5,500. Here we get to split a couple peaks that are both nearly 6,600 feet. And so 6,600 plus 2,000, 8,600. And do you remember your hemispherical rule? I know you do. East is odd, west is even odder. So that means at bare minimum, we want to be cruising at 9,000 feet. And then we go through 9,000 feet. It doesn't really get much higher than that. Then it starts sloping off as we get into Asheville. So I don't know what you're flying. Most people are probably in some sort of trainer aircraft, Cessna 172. I flew in Diamond DA-20s and DA-40s. And while I could probably get up to 9,000 feet, there's some things to consider, right? Think about all the stuff you learned in your private pilot training, where maybe you can get up to 9,000 feet, but you're going over mountains. Is there a risk with going over mountains? Do you have specific mountain flying training, which is recommended, not legally required, but we're all very smart and we know that legal doesn't necessarily mean safe, right? Right. So if you haven't taken a mountain flying course, maybe you don't want to go cruising over the Smoky Mountains in a Cessna 172 at 9,000 feet. If, depending on what the weather conditions are, let's say it's a hot day and 9,000 feet with density altitudes, we're going to feel like 11, 12,000 feet. I don't know if I want to be up there like full throttle, trying to gain altitude back when I'm getting downdrafts of 1,000 feet per minute. I think the Smoky Mountains are probably pretty beautiful, but I don't want to see them that up close and personal, if you know what I mean. So an adage that I'm going to say here that I like to live by, at least for the sake of a lot of these exams, right, is there's a lot of right answers. And it's all going to really depend on how you justify your situations. Everybody's situation is different. We all have potentially different personal minimums. We have different aircrafts. We have different levels of proficiency. And it's on you to make sure, as pilot in command, that you know what the hell you're talking about and you can justify and make safe decisions when you're a pilot and what those conditions are for you. And so the decisions I make here might not resonate with you, but at least you can justify them, and that's what I'm hoping for. So anyway, I want to avoid that, and we can kind of see this little zipper railroad thing that goes all the way around here. That's also one of the problems we're going to have when we're being routed through IFR. This is a giant MOA. This is a snowbird MOA, and the direct path over these mountains is going to take us through that. And so, worst case, we'd have to go around to the north anyway. But I already made a decision. I'm going to avoid flying over those mountains. So how do I do it? It's not rocket surgery, but we're going to go ahead and switch over up here on the top right. We're going to switch from the VFR sectional to the low IFR charts. And so a couple things. We want to avoid that MOA. You can kind of see this MOA here. Let's see if there's any other special use airspaces we need to consider here. Nothing really. I think from my perspective, I'm fine cruising 7,000 feet. I don't want to do it over mountains. And I need to make sure that however I reroute, to take into account any additional time and distance that's going to require me to do. So how do we get around them? Well, if you have a globe nearby, if you're going to go like open up that closet you haven't opened up since elementary school and pull out that globe, or if you have like a relief map of the United States, go and take a look at the East Coast, and you'll see that the Appalachian Mountains start the southern part is about just a little bit north of Atlanta, and then it stretches all the way towards Maine. And so going around to the north might not be the best idea, especially since we have the Atlanta area pretty close by. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that choice. And while Atlanta is about here, I'm going to zoom out to kind of see in the grand scheme of things where we are. Nashville here, Atlanta's here, Asheville's here. Makes a wonderful little triangle. I want to see if I can go a little bit north of Atlanta. This very busy intersection here might be good. Nello, near Pickens County Airport. We have shout out Pickens County, by the way. That's where I did my check ride for my private pilot certificate. So shout out Pickens. So let's go there. Let's go Nello. And I'm going to add that to my flight plan and kind of see. So we have this first leg, which is going to take us from Nashville to Nello. Do I take this? I guess it depends on the capabilities of my aircraft. I'm making an assumption that I'm going to have GPS and I can navigate with that. If I don't have GPS and I'm required to use something like a VOR, I might have to play some connect the dots and go from maybe Nashville here to this VORTAC here near Shelbyville, and then play this connect the dots game of maybe I'd go from here to the Hinch Mountain VOR, VORTAC, whatever that happens to be up there, and then connect the dots south. But I don't have to do that. If I'm in a GPS, I'm going to make my life a little bit easier, and I'm just going to make sure my 7,000 foot cruise altitude is sufficient. And just taking a look at the Arokas in these quadrangles, 4,500 is plenty fine, 5,400, 4,700, then eventually 6,600 here. By the way, Aroka's difference between this and the MEFs, it's already taking into account like that 1,000 or 2,000 foot clearance that you're going to need if there's any like mountains in the area or whatever. And so that a cruise altitude of 7,000 is going to be safe. With that said, you don't use the Aroka to determine what your altitude is, but it is a good kind of high level view, quick glance of whether or not altitudes make sense in that general area. And so I like it. I'm going to do that because I don't want to go from Nashville to Alabama just to cut east. So I think this is going to make my life a little bit easier. And as we're cutting through here, here's Asheville. This still gets into this mountainous area. We'll see 7,800 here, and we knew that MOA kind of sat in those mountains still. So we want to go a little bit further south and just peaking from this Nello intersection. If we take a look at Victor 415, thing that stands out to me is, hey, it has an MEA of 6,000. And this 6,000 MEA allows us to set a cruise at 7,000. We're going to keep going. We can keep going east on it. It's still 6,000. We get to the Foothills VOR, and it's still 6,000. It actually drops down to 4,000 as we stay on 415. And then from there we get to Greenville, Spartanburg, and we can then cut our way north, and it's still in the 6,000s. Even the GPS Tango routes at 6,000, and Asheville Airport's here. And so that's awesome. That lets us know that we can cruise at 7,000 and avoid a lot of that high altitude stuff that we wanted to in the first place. And so that's what I'll do. We'll do a Victor 415, and it already tells us that we're flat. SkyVector is nice. It already created an intersection for us here at Pelham, and we kind of have this line where we avoid this MOA, and we avoid all of the mountainous areas and high altitude stuff that we deemed not very safe for our flight, and have a flight that we're more comfortable with. Now this extended our flight. We originally had an hour and a half ish to do that direct, and we added almost an hour, and it's going to be about 300 nautical miles to do this trip. With that in mind, you have to take into consideration all the things that right? Like, what aircraft are you flying? Personal minimums are, do you want to fly for 2.5 hours straight? When you do the weather analysis, how does it adjust your flight time? Do you have enough fuel? Should you do a fuel stop in the middle? These are the things you're going to have to consider. But I like this path. There's some things here that we avoided, and we made some smart decisions, and we'll go ahead and refine that as we go forward and kind of pick our routes. There's one thing I didn't talk about here. This is the only other airspace. It just kind of piqued my eye that we're just going to clip. This is an alert area near Dahlonega. We can go ahead and take a look at what that alert area actually means, and doesn't mean we can't go through it. It's just we need to be aware of some things that are going on in that area. So that's that. Next video we'll talk about all the other things.